What's up, homies? What do the Berlin Wall, cyanide grapes, acrylic nails, brown V board, and the internet all have in common? They all came together or fell apart under a Saturn Neptune conjunction. Every time these two planets come together, we see structures fall, boundaries blur, and creative ideas cemented in history. And in February 2026, they're meeting again at 0 degrees Aries. That is the Aries point. That degree acts kind of like a microphone. Whatever lands there gets amplified across the entire world. So, this Saturn Neptune moment is even more significant than the others because we're all going to feel it. Truthfully, we're already feeling it. Saturn and Neptune are already a trip individually, but baby, when they show up together, woo, things we thought were durable, the traditions, the structures, the institutions, they all start to dissolve. What's supposed to be solid turns soft. That's what she said. And at the same time, things that were previously ungraspable, the beliefs, myths, dreams, become concretized. They get form, they get rules. This is when we're forced to reckon with the gaps, where we've let things drift instead of defining them, or where we need to shore up what's been slowly unraveling. Like social safety net, universal healthcare. Something's in my throat, guys. But yeah, in this video, we're going to dig into what all of this means, dive deep into how Saturn and Neptune have operated together historically, and then I'll share some final thoughts on how they'll probably show up for us this time around in 2026. In addition to sharing some hopeful words during this challenging time, because Saturn Neptune is challenging. But if you're new here, I'm Ebony. I'm an astrologer, hypnotist, and your homegirl to the stars. And I look a little rougher than usual today, but I'm actually on brand for Saturn Neptune. If you're into astrology and want something that's smart, sharp, and a little bit spicy, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like this video. It lets me and the algorithm know that you're into this kind of content and helps more people find it. Now, let's break down our players in this sordid astrological saga, shall we? What is Saturn? Saturn is structure. It's the walls, bones, rules, the author of melancholy and fear. It's the anxiety that compels you to put systems into place. It erects barriers. Now, Saturn says, let's define some SOPs, standard operating procedures, because what I'm not about to do or where I'm not going is back and forth with you over this again. Saturn hardens, it restricts, it crystallizes, it separates and segregates. It slows things down. It governs governments, institutions, time. Anything that means getting codified or locked in, Saturn's in it. Saturn denies things. Saturn says, hell no to the no, no, no. Saturn drives the struggle bus. Enough about Saturn for now. What is Neptune? Neptune is the fog, the fantasy. It is water, gas, music, mysticism. Neptune governs dreams and deception, illness and illusion, spirituality, toxins, addiction, escapism, and disappearance. Neptune doesn't shout, it seeps, it leaks, it evades, and it spreads. Yes, like the plague. So when Saturn and Neptune come together, several things can happen. A dream gets institutionalized. A structure and our sense of safety or security get eroded. So we take a spin on the struggle bus. Beliefs get boundaries and the rules get kind of fuzzy. Sometimes we put a frame around a fantasy, and sometimes the frame itself starts to dissolve. So let's take a look at how this combination shows up historically. It happens around every 36 years or so. So we've been here before. You know, there are a few consistent Saturn Neptune patterns that continue to resurface over the years. So in 1989, the Berlin Wall falls. It is a literal Saturnian boundary and it's gone. Brazil holds its first free presidential election after 29 years, and 29 years is a Saturn cycle. And for those who see integration, racial integration, as a good thing, Saturn Neptune delivers. In 1952, Brown v. Board of Education was argued before the Supreme Court. In 1989, South Africa repealed the Reservation of Separate Amenities Act, which was a cornerstone of apartheid segregation. Now, on contamination and quarantine, that's another Saturn-Neptune topic. Take the Exxon Valdez oil spill. 10.8 million gallons of crude oil seeped into Alaskan waters. Neptune governs oil and toxicity. Saturn governs great loss and hardship. And that was definitely a part of the story. Hundreds of thousands of seabirds and seals and more, and even 4 people were killed. And a decades-long cleanup followed after that event. The Great Smog of London. That was a few days of still winds sitting over the city, allowing pollution from coal smoke to stagnate over the city for 4 days. And that killed about 4,000 Londoners. Or we could talk about the cyanide-laced grapes from Chile that found their way into a Philadelphia supermarket. And that one invisible contaminant ended up causing the US to ban all fruit from Chile. So we also, in addition to that toxicity, we see bans, straight up prohibition, arise under Saturn Neptune. So the US banned smoking on most domestic flights in 1989 under that Saturn Neptune conjunction. Scandinavian Airlines also banned smoking. And then earlier in 1917, the US passed the 18th Amendment, laying the groundwork for prohibition. And in 1989, 12 European nations agreed to ban the production of chlorofluorocarbons by the year 2000. And when it comes to people's birth charts, when we're talking about Saturn and Neptune and the transits, sometimes transits that bring Neptune to natal Saturn or vice versa can bring someone to sobriety. So check out my Black China video if you haven't seen that, aka Angela White. So yes, when I see modern headlines that say things like there's no safe amount of alcohol, my Saturn Neptune spidey senses start tingling. By the way, if you're nodding along to what I'm saying and want weekly astrological and tarot insights straight to your inbox, head on over to homegirlastrology.com and sign up for the newsletter. You'll get updates on transits, tools for reflection, and first dibs on any new offerings. All right, moving on to misery, illness, and economic collapse. Saturn-Neptune conjunctions almost always coincide with economic uncertainty. We're talking recession, depression, contraction, stagnation, choose your term. These are not quick crises. These are slow, grinding periods of malaise. Structural failure that isn't always loud, but it's definitely felt. So if things have been feeling a little financially precarious here lately, then you're feeling the weight of Saturn-Neptune. Under multiple Saturn-Neptune conjunctions, we have also seen nuclear tests and bombs, things that collapse space and time, that break apart Saturn, physical matter, through invisible energy, Neptune. In 1952, the US detonated its first hydrogen bomb. Earlier in 1846, the nitrocellulose was patented, which is a key ingredient for explosives. And Neptune and Saturn together bring water-related disasters as well, or disasters to places on water. So lots of earthquakes. You see that a lot with Neptune, Saturn as well. And many of those end up leading to tsunamis and in some cases fires. So the list kind of goes on. Like there was a major earthquake that hit Dubrovnik, Croatia, that killed a lot of people. The Great Fire at Port Royal, Jamaica. The Great Storm in London, England. The Great Fire of London. So sidebar, London really gets kind of hammered during these Saturn-Neptune moments. So may want to say a prayer for them. A great fire killed thousands in Greece after a devastating earthquake. Major earthquakes hit Italy and Japan, and those were followed by tsunamis and fires that killed tens of thousands of people, perhaps up to the hundreds of thousands. And there was a big tornado in Waco, Texas that killed about 100 folks. So Mother Nature really shows her hind parts in these moments. So it's a great time to make sure your insurance is paid up, JIC, just in case. And a lot of these moments I'm talking about historically were before they had structures that were quite as sound as the ones we have now. But it's still, I mean, Mother Nature is a powerful force. She's way more powerful than anything we can construct. So just putting it out there. We also want to think about with Neptune or Saturn Neptune when dreams get structured. Tim Berners-Lee proposes a system for organizing information, what would eventually become the World Wide Web that you're connecting with me on today. It is a Neptunian vision given Saturnian bones. During another Saturn Neptune cycle, Clarence Birdseye begins marketing frozen food. Saturn is cold and slows things down. Water is Neptune. So if you slow down water molecules, you're going to end up with ice. Ice, baby. The millennials and Gen Xers will get it. Anesthetic ether, Neptune, was used for the first time by American dentists who extracted, and an American dentist who extracted a tooth, and Saturn rules teeth. We also saw some beautiful inventions, beauty inventions, thanks to Saturn Neptune moments. For example, acrylic fingernails. Neptune rules illusion, Saturn rules our nails, and they were invented by a dentist in, I believe, 1952. And in 1951, still under that same Saturn Neptune influence, a beautician in Chicago, a Black woman by the name of Christina Jenkins, earned a patent for her invention called hair weave. So I'm curious to see what that's going to bring us this time around. What inventions will y'all be creating? This one's crazy to me. Neptune itself was discovered under a Saturn-Neptune transit. You can't make it up. Art and artists that stand the test of time are made under Saturn-Neptune conjunctions. Elvis Presley recorded his first demo in 1953. Even though he stole his whole swag, let's be honest, that still was the birth of a pop culture legacy and an icon. In 1953, Ernest Hemingway wins a Pulitzer for The Old Man and the Sea. Saturn is the old man, Neptune is the sea. Phyllis Wheatley, her poetry book was published under the 1773 Saturn Neptune cycle. And that was the first known book of poems published by a Black woman. So that's, legacy. Interestingly, a whole genre of Japanese film, literature, and theater called Chushingura was created after 47 Ronin or soldiers committed ritual suicide after having avenged their lord's death. That moment was the foundation for an artistic legacy. Hold on, I'm gonna have to pause real quick. Gotta love city living. That moment was the foundation for an artistic legacy that became an integral part of Japan's national identity. So if you've ever seen the movie 47 Ronin, I think that's the name of it. That's a part of that history. And then finally, when Saturn Neptune comes around, sometimes something or someone gets through. In 1989, David Dinkins becomes the first Black mayor of New York City. And in that same year, Douglas Wilder becomes the first Black governor in the US, period. And in 1952, Brown v. Board of Education arguments began at the Supreme Court. These aren't anomalies. These are moments when barriers weaken and a new possibility slips through. Saturn governs institutions, Neptune permeates. And occasionally the institution lets in something that it had long resisted, whether it meant to or not. So, what does this mean for 2026? The Saturn Neptune conjunction will land, as I said before, at 0 degrees Aries. That is the Aries point. That is like being in the spotlight. So we gonna feel it. We gonna see it. It's not simply a structure dissolving or a dream becoming real. All of this is happening out in the open. We're talking a spike in poverty and collective hardship, financial instability, resource scarcity, and policies that fail to meet the moment. When this combination happens on the Aries point, that is known as a combination for hysteria. And I just saw a New York Times article about the booming business of panic. People installing panic rooms, bunkers, moats, hidden shooting ranges, all types of shit. A moat is some of the most Saturn Neptune shit I have ever heard. Bridges are also going to be big in the news. Water shortages and droughts, even more natural disasters than we're already experiencing. Truthfully, I think the natural disasters that we're experiencing now are a part of this conjunction. We're just, feeling it early. But especially disasters linked to water, in particular, probably fire as well, because this is going to be an Aries conjunction, a conjunction happening in Aries, and Aries is a fire sign. Think tsunamis, flooding, tornadoes, chemical spills, and a war or major global conflict centered on issues of separation, land, borders, or identity. We can expect a public reckoning with illness, a chronic, hard to pin down or invisible thing, more discourse on long-term conditions, environmental toxicity, mental health, another round of bans on substances, chemicals, maybe even platforms. Even the state to try expect the state to try and purify or quarantine something that it sees as a threat. Art that endures, music, books, film, and creators who speak to the collective longing and build something lasting. This could be the start of a whole new artistic legacy for somebody. Cultural shifts that feel like waking up. When people and where people begin to realize that inclusion isn't what's hurting them, the lie of separation starts to crack. So bringing in the Aries energy again, we're adding fire, we're adding fireworks, we're adding warmongering to the moment. Aries does represent the survival instinct. So that's going to be something that factors in. But if you've got an idea that creates structure around something fluid, mystical, or hard to explain, this is the time to build it, to put it out there, to give it legs, to make it real. Saturn and Neptune are coming together. So ask yourself, what are you building? What are you believing? What's quietly eroding under your feet as we speak? And how and where will you cement your expansive legacy? What needs reinforcement before the next wave hits? And what systems might not survive the dream? We're about to find out. And yes, I know, I'm sure even just listening to this has been a lot, because I know experiencing it has been a lot too. A lot of loss, a lot of collapse, a lot of, are we living in a simulation right now? A lot of, woo, child. But here's what I'm holding on to. We've been here before. Our ancestors have lived through Saturn Neptune moments. Some of y'all watching have already lived through more than one. I know I've lived through one. So this isn't new, and it isn't without guidance. We carry the lessons of every cycle before this one. It's etched into our bones, our stories, our systems, and our insights. We may not like going backward, but we're not walking blind. The path is messy. I ain't even gonna lie to you. I ain't even gonna hold you. But the path is not unmarked. If we listen to the past, to ourselves, to each other, we can move forward with a little bit more grace, a little more grounding, a little more clarity. Let's build something worthy of the dream. All right. And before we go, because I want to end on a more positive note, right? I think we could use some uplifting guidance as we head into this Saturn Neptune moment. I'm going to pull an oracle card for the collective from the Sacred Traveler deck. I'll hold it up. There you go. What message do we need to hear about Saturn Neptune? Reaching your destination. Your light is shining brightly. That's kind of nice. I'm gonna hold it up so y'all can see it. You can see my raggedy Saturn Neptune nails. Reaching your destination. So I'm gonna read the card. All your hard work and effort is paying off. Glory, triumph, and success are yours. If you've given your power away, now is the time to reclaim it. It's time to stand in your own light. A destination is less of a place, but more of a new way of seeing the world. Your dreams are moving to fruition. Come on, Saturn, structured dreams. If you have any incomplete projects or unresolved relationships, this is the time to complete them. This is an important part of reaching your destination. Take time to celebrate and acknowledge your successes in life. The sacred traveler wants you to know the voyage was long and there were many adventures along the way. But as your trek reaches the destination, there's a feeling of joy and celebration. It's important to stop and rest and congratulate yourself for who you are and for what you have done. The traveler forgives those who on the voyage were less than honorable. Release any feelings of resentment, fear, and sadness that you may have gathered along the road. You've reached your goal. Let everything else go. You're a majestic being who can bring light into the hearts of others. Celebrate and honor yourself. You are so worth it. All right. Well, she said what she said. Peace, homies.